What's up? Welcome back to Nowstalgia. Dave here with a review of Silent Night, the new action film from John Woo, starring Joel Kinnaman. Yes, John Woo is back with a Hollywood film, his first Hollywood film in 20 years, since 2004. Of course, John Woo, famous Chinese action auteur, probably most well known to American audiences for his movies such as Face Off and, of course, Mission Impossible 2, as well as Wind Talkers, a few other movies. And yeah, it's been a long time for Wu, of course, and yeah, I definitely wasn't expecting him to actually even make a comeback such as this. But it's kind of fun that he's making a comeback with like a true action movie, in the vein, of course, of his most celebrated works over in China, such as Hard Boiled. And yeah, Silent Night. The central conceit, the central gimmick, is of course that this movie has basically no dialogue because Joel Kinnaman's character is this father whose young son is killed by a stray bullet from a gang member in LA, and thus he goes on a rampage of revenge. But early on in the start of the story, he gets shot and loses his vocal cords, loses his ability to speak. So as a result, the script, has basically no dialogue. There's a few lines here and there. There's some radio dialogue. So there are words throughout the movie, but it's largely quiet. It's looks, presence, gestures, etc. And that is an interesting premise. And I think ultimately Silent Night, I think it's like an okay time, but the action chops of this aren't as like up to par as I would have expected from someone of Wu's caliber and ability. He's kind of dialed back his like really flashy style that again American audiences probably know from when he took things a little too far with Mission Impossible 2. It's and in the time we're living in now with action movies, right? Post The Raid, post John Wick, even smaller stuff like Atomic Blonde or Nobody. Like we have a high bar for like hand to hand action, and I just don't know if the set pieces really like rise to the pretty high bar that we now have for like real true action beat 'em up movies. So while I think it's like there's interesting things about the movie, it ultimately kind of falls a bit flat by the end. But there are some interesting elements of Kinnaman. I think he's a interesting actor for this kind of movie as well, because Kinnaman, someone who was ostensibly going to become a star, 10 plus years ago, it never quite happened. Even though he's had some big roles, he's continued to work. I'm a big fan of him in For All Mankind, for example, but he's never truly become like the A-lister people might have thought. And Kinnaman, he's kind of a fun fit for this because Wu really like takes his time with the training montage, as it were, where his Kinnaman's character decides that he's going to take a year to train and study this gang operation, and then wipe them out the following Christmas. And because Christmas is when he loses his son, roughly, and it's like really dark and procedural in the training montage, watching him watch YouTube videos to learn how to like properly stab someone and all the things he's doing to get himself stronger after nearly dying, of course, in the very beginning of the story. And it's not like really cerebral or like fun or jubilant montage. It's very like tactical and dark because this character is just subsumed by his darkness and his rage because of his grief. His wife basically has no choice but to leave him because he just completely breaks down and can't communicate. And you're basically watching a guy lose his mind and seek and fulfill his death wish. And some of the action is fun. I think some of the story is a bit confusing. Like there's a open gang war sequence that he kind of pulls up on, and it's a little muddled, kind of what's going on. Watching him kind of roll around his, I believe it's the Mustang. He like soups up and just kind of shooting people out the window and stuff. It's all pretty fun. And in the final action set piece where he attacks the gang hideout, there's a notable like staircase sequence where he basically just walks up the staircase with his shotgun, with his pistols, knife, etc., and it starts taking people down. But the thing is, it's really not much beyond that. Like we had a really amazing staircase set piece in 2017 with Atomic Blonde, and this just kind of feels like a carbon copy of it that doesn't have any inspiration. Again, kind of weird from someone like Wu. I think Wu was really going for like the really self-seriousness of this character, but the spectacle doesn't rise above to a special degree to, I think, really reward you for sitting with something so dour and self-serious the entire time. There's a kind of a subplot with Kid Cudi's LAPD character as this detective who kind of gives Kinnaman's character some intel subtly and basically okays his ability to go on his vigilante mission. But like, you have Cudi not saying anything, right? Because that's how this movie works, and he's just kind of there for the most part. The gang characters, there's some interesting visuals, like the main bad guy with all the tattoos on the side of his face and stuff, but like really kind of a non-entity as a character. So yeah, I think like ultimately it's a pretty surface level movie, which would have been more okay if I think the action rose above just being completely average to me. Like, so I ultimately was pretty let down by the movie. Even I thought it was a decent watch. It wasn't too long, didn't overstay its welcome, but at the end, like that self seriousness, I think, kind of got to me, and like it's a bit of a flat ending. Like it's a predictable path, but also like I just needed a little bit more spectacle. I think, Wu, to his credit, jumping out of the camera, the way he cuts and stuff, that all looks pretty cool. But I just don't think the set pieces had enough inspiration, enough vision. So it's okay. I'm very curious, honestly, more than anything else. Like, is John Woo going to continue to work? Obviously, he's on the older side of things as a director. Not that, of course, that means too much nowadays. Look at Ridley and Martin Scorsese. If we think about recent movies, but what is Woo going to do next? Is he going to make something else in Hollywood? Is he going to keep working over in China? Do a mix of both? Who's to say? But hopefully, he continues to work because obviously he's someone with a unique vision. And even if I would have liked this movie to be more like Michael Bay's Ambulance, for example, it was not. Nonetheless, it's okay. I appreciate the attempt. But let me know, what did you think of Silent Night? Were you let down by John Woo's Hollywood comeback the way I was? What do you want next for Joel Kinnaman? Let me know, and for more movie reviews, subscribe, and I'll see you next time.